Alright everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about a VHS restoration project that I'm doing because all of my initial student films that I made in high school were produced on VHS camcorders and edited on an old non-linear form editing program called Media 100. Media 100 is now obsolete, but that was one of the earliest non-linear programs that were operating on Apple, and that's the program that my school had at the time. And so basically what this project is it was shot on VHS, it was imported into Media 100, edited, and then it was run back to a VHS tape because back then we just did not have the computer power to export and save in QuickTime formats. QuickTime was a heavy format and the computer power back then just didn't allow us to do stuff like that. So the big image you're seeing on the right here, that's black and white, that's the original edited movie. And I imported it via VHS tape using RCA connections. And then on the lower left-hand corner here, that's the raw footage, because I still have the tape of the original camera raw footage. And that was ripped using an RCA connection as well. Then I went a step further and I got myself access to a television studio grade VCR with an SVHS connection, and that's what's in the right window here. And that SVHS footage is crystal clear by comparison to the RCA footage. I don't know why or how it's different. Like, I can't tell you the technical workings of it. I just know that for some reason, the version I edited on Media 100 has a lot more details in the shadows than either of these. And what I've been trying to do is pull those details out of the shadows with the raw footage, which for the most part I've not been able to do. Also, with the edited version that was done back in 1999, for some reason it always felt crisper to me. I don't know why. And so really it's just become an exploration of the VHS format and how different each rip of the footage is. Like, depending on the machine I'm using, the footage is never the same. There's always something slightly different each time. And the reason is because it's analog data on videotape. Like, it's not a digital file where the ones and zeros are always ones and zeros. Everything is dependent on the heads in the VCR, how clean they are, how fast it's moving through, and how the signal is being interpreted and dealt with. And it's super weird and confusing. I don't 100% understand it, but I do know that every time I've captured this footage digitally, it always comes out slightly different. And so that's why in restoring this old student film, I am really racking my brain trying to figure out what the best possible workflow is for this, because I really want this to be something where all the variations possible are archived. So a multitude of variations of the raw footage that are ripped on a multitude of different machines are archived, and various versions of the movie, including the version of the movie that I edited back then, is going to be restored using all those different feeds. And so that's what you're seeing here, is you're seeing the original, the RCA, and then the SVHS feeds. And I'm basically putting it together again and again and again, overlapping all the footage. I don't know any other way to do this. And so, again, it's an experimental exploration of what it means to take a VHS made movie and properly archiving it in the digital HD era. Now, because there's no time code, there's no and all the timing is different on every single feed, what I have to do is I have to find a point where I can sync each clip. So with this particular shot, for example, what I do is I step forward to a point where that window appears on the right. See, it's not there, and then it's there. And then I go to the SVHS feed in my load window, go to that same shot, and window appears on the right for the first time. That's my sync point. Let's see here. That should work. Yep, it's synced. And it's not exactly right too. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but the quality of the highlights were off a little bit. Interesting though that you could see more details in the highlights in the raw footage, but you could see more details in the blacks in the degraded footage. This is why this is confusing me. So syncing this up, I'm basically going to match his foot. So this is Bowie. This is a boy from my hometown. That's about right there. Just give it a little leeway so we can put it in. Backtrack it. Boom. That's synced up too. See that? And I always move the RCA to the left and the SVHS to the right. And then I go on with the next one. Oh yeah, so this shot here I already planned to do as with that log here. See that log? So we're gonna wait for it to just get out of frame and then put it back into frame a little bit. Then on the left, fuck, sorry about that. See, I recorded TV shows on the same tape, so that was half my problem with as a kid, is that I had no respect for copyright law. Here we go. When you're a kid and you're experimenting with all these formats, like, you want to know what's possible and what's not possible from a creative standpoint. So I was always recording TV shows and using footage. Alright, so there, now it's out of frame. This is an example of where it just doesn't seem to coincide. So I have to match it as close as possible. That looks like it's close right there. But yeah, the movement of the log going out of frame was definitely not on par with the other footage. That's okay though. It's clearly not an exact format, so I have to make the best of it. My desire to be a perfectionist, it doesn't really exist anyway, so I just kind of embrace it for what it is. Perfectionism is bad hoodoo anyway. It can really slow you down. And that completes the SVHS addition to the timeline. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically clean it up, and then I'm going to create 3 separate timelines for this. And so the SVHS will be one, the RCA will be another, and then I'm going to take all 3 and I'm going to try to meld all of the tracks together to see what I can do, what's possible. How can I blend video? It's just, I'm an experimental filmmaker. I want to see what can be done. I'm thinking outside the box about this because, one, I don't understand the technology fully. I don't think a lot of people do. And I think that gives me an edge. Because one of the things I want to make sure happens is I want to make sure that this video footage is archived in every form possible, that the edited movie and the raw footage are all archived in a multitude of formats using a multitude of machines, so there is no chance that any data that could be retrieved is lost. And this of course comes from anxiety that is rooted in having lost videotapes over the years. You know, I live in New York City now. All this footage was shot in my hometown in Maine. And in New York City, you move around a lot. You always are apartment hopping. And every time I moved in my first few years in New York, I lost things. And some of the things I lost were videotapes that didn't have duplicates. Like, I remember losing the VHS master of my father's 50th birthday when he was still healthy, before his health fell apart. And I really, really valued that footage, and now I just don't have access to it. It's gone. A landlord threw it out before I had a chance to go back and retrieve the rest of my things. And this kind of skeeviness, it happens in New York all the time. And so that really set me on a course to becoming an archivist of my own work. I don't leave it to anybody else to do it. And so this is the first film I ever made. It was made in high school. It has a lot of people in it who are no longer with us, and a lot of people who are now fully functioning adults. Some are middle-aged. This is when they were kids. And so it's really valuable. It's historically relevant. And it's important that I go through this process to understand what it is that I am able to do. Because if I can figure this out with this project, then maybe I can figure it out or use what I've learned for other people's projects. Because ultimately, I would like to help people save their footage as well. And so it's also just fun. I really, really love playing with old formats, using new technology. And so, yeah, this is my first movie, and I will let you guys know how it turns out. I'll probably put the restored version on YouTube at some point. Thanks, everyone.